Welcome back to the show. Our next guests come from Salt Lake City, Utah. Please welcome back to the show Kat and Casey Elliott, co-founders of Kat and Casey. Hello to both of you. Great to see you. How you doing today?
Great.
Well.
Good to see you, Sarah.
All right, well, I'm very excited to have you both. My first question, I'll start with Casey. I'm curious, why would any home just sit on the market?
That is a very good question, especially in this market when it's so great. Really, it comes down to four factors. There's price, location, the condition of the home, and the emotional connection. And usually in that order too is where people put their emphasis. What's interesting though is when you look at those, at the last one is usually the one that gets placed last, and that's the emotional connection. But in a lot of ways, that's the most important one, because somebody can look at a home that's priced well, that's in an amazing location, it's in pristine condition, and it just doesn't feel right. And so that amazing home becomes a great home for somebody else. So what we kind of focus on and see a lot in what we deal with is homes that just aren't connecting. They're not getting even the views. People aren't even expressing interest. They're not even scheduling showings. And so that emotional connection really has to be there.
Okay, I can understand that as well. It's a lot of emotion involved. And Kat, I know that you also are really good with trying to find that connection, especially when it comes to aesthetics in the home as well. So how can you make a home feel updated when maybe the paint colors are just a little darker?
That's a really good question, Sarah, as well, because a lot of times, ultimately and optimally for us in creating that canvas that we need to craft the home into the right product, the canvas really is the walls. And if the walls are outdated in their colors, or they're damaged, or they're feeling dark and oppressive, then ultimately if the seller's able, if they have the means and the time constraints to be able to address that and update with paint, that's always ideal, because then we have a fresh blank canvas to go in and craft the home into the product it needs to be. But in some instances, that is not an option. The seller does not have the financial means or the time to do either. And so we have to work with what we're given. And so in those situations, we have to focus on what is going to provide that emotional connection in spite of the colors maybe being a little off or a little dated. And we do that with what we bring into the home. So starting with the furniture choices, we want to add contrast. So if the walls are a little darker, the furniture pieces we bring in are going to be a little lighter. We are not vanilla kings and queens. We do not come in and whitewash everything. We do not bring in completely neutral environments, because that isn't necessarily what's going to connect with the buyer on an emotional level for that home. So when we do that with everything from the furniture, which are the foundational pieces for the room, and then the lighting, the lampshades, and what kind of hue those lampshades are going to cast against that color of paint, that's a considering factor, as well as the home decor accent pieces that we're bringing in. If it's a little bit darker space or a little more outdated, we want to make sure that those core pieces are very trending for the demographic that we are staging for, and the product that we are trying to craft to attract that right buyer.
One thing I'll add to that as well is what's amazing is 98% of home buyers today start their journey in looking for a home online, which means they're looking at photos and video of a home. And if those photos don't speak to them, they'll never get to the point where they're interested in actually seeing it in person. And so the furniture and how it's lit and how the room is lit and what that says emotionally through a photo is everything these days.
And it has to stand out on the MLS, because if a home is just sitting in a sea of other homes and there's nothing about it that is singular or standalone, then it's just going to get passed over and they're going to flip to the next home. So being able to catch their attention right out of the gate is really key with all of these factors, and they all kind of play together. There's not one that's more important than the other. It really has to work together in the process to craft the home into that right product.
Okay, well, before I let you guys go, I know that you have a very beautiful home listing that you came to share today. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Case.
So this listing is a great example of a room. The paint is the same. We didn't touch the paint, but the room just felt dark. And the reason for that was the furniture and a little bit of the lighting. There could have been some more lamps and different things like that. And so as you can see in the before and afters, the befores look a little bit dark. The afters, where you just bring in the lighter furniture, a few more lamps, it totally transforms the space.
Yeah.
And particularly in the way that it photographs, because you have more light, it's brighter. And so, yeah, this is a home that we're listing here in Layton, actually really close to where I live. It's an amazing neighborhood. And we're excited to see the price is $415 and it hasn't changed. So we took it on recently. We'll list it at $415 as it was listed before.
I actually listed it at $414, which is great.
Yeah.
But it really, the home has been sitting on the market for the exact same reason that we just talked about, Sarah. It is literally one of those homes that was priced phenomenally as price per square foot for this neighborhood. Very desirable as far as that, but very little traffic on their last listing and very little activity overall as far as showings. Very, very sparse, because no one, in spite of the price, in spite of this amazing neighborhood in Oak Forest in Layton, no one was wanting to come see it. And so we are super excited and super hopeful now to see what the different reaction is going to be and the difference that staging the home will make in creating that emotional connection for the right buyer.
Absolutely.
Not for everybody, for the right buyer.
That's right. So just finding that one connection that will really put everything in place. Well, thank you both so much. And I know that homes like this are in great hands with the two of you. Great to see you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great to see you,
Take
Sarah.
care.
And stick around, more interviews after this.